Another story from the days in Alamosa and the early days. It occurred while Dr. Leary was still chairman of the board. Incidentally, I always felt after losing out in Alamosa that had Dr. Leary not chosen to leave the community, and if he had remained on the school board, that it would have been a very different experience, because he was such a discerning, intelligent, balanced individual. At any rate, Jim Beckley, principal of the junior high, came to me fairly early in that first year and said, "We've got a problem, and I'm going to use fictitious names for real people, like they say, to protect the innocent." He said, "We have a mother, Mrs. Sanders, who comes to me saying that her daughter was molested by a custodian." And he said, "As I talked to the mother and as I talked to the daughter, I believe it happened." But he said, on the other hand, when I talked to Mr. Ayres, I don't believe it happened. And he said, "I've known Mr. Ayres for years and years and years, and there's never been a single complaint of any kind about the gentleman's work or his behavior around students." He said, I don't know what to tell you, except that when I talked to that mother and I talked to that girl, I believe it happened. When I talked to the gentleman, I don't believe it happened. And when I consider what I know about the gentleman, I don't believe he would do such a thing. Well, okay, Mr. Beckley. I'll also look into it and see if I get any different feeling than you got. Incidentally, my wife and I enjoy watching Judge Judy on television. Man, oh man, it must be great to be as sure as she is about being able to look a person in the eye and know the truth. I certainly think that I am fairly discerning about human nature, but I'll tell you for sure, when I talked to the mother and I talked to the girl, I was just like Jim Beckley. I believe that child was molested. But when I talked to the custodian, his demeanor, his manner, his gentle nature, I believed him when he absolutely said, "Dr. Riggs, I never did such a thing to that girl or any girl." Well, doggone it. In the absence of all that discerning power that Judge Judy claims to have, and I guess she has it, they say she's the highest paid judge in America, who do you go to? You call Dr. Leary, the board chairman. Dr. Leary and I talked, and he said, "Well, the only thing I can tell you is that my house is practically a dorm for girls, with my daughters having overnighters come in." And he said, "I have heard girls tell some of the dangdest tales that you know as you listen, or just tales that they get into, can you top this kind of thing?" And then he said some of them tell tales that sound like they really mean it, but you wonder, do they really mean it, or are they caught up in all this other? And he said, based on what Mr. Beckley and you sense, I think you have to do something, but you can't declare that the man has molested the child, and you can't declare that the man didn't molest the child, because you, Mr. Beckley, myself, we don't know. Mr. Harris was transferred out of the building, was put in another school with younger students, and served without never a complaint of any kind from anybody. Mrs. Sanders, though, when years later, when the AEA was out to show its muscle and was agitating in the community, they went to Mrs. Sanders to run for the school board, and on the night that they voted to buy my contract, she said, "I still think you called me and you called my girl a liar." I never did, I never would, I still have no idea, but that mother felt so strongly that that child was molested, I can't help but suspicion the child was molested. Knowing a little bit, though, more about human nature, was she molested by Mr. Harris, or did she pick a little old Mexican minority, gentle man to accuse rather than telling Mama who did molest her? God knows. I don't know. And I hope that little girl has gone on to have a very normal, rich life. I know she has a nice mama.